Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Rain, and at the beginning of this year I decided to set myself a little goal. In an effort to clear my backlog of about 320 games, can I get 100 fully completed games at 100% with all DLCs, platinum or not, within 12 months? We are now at the 6-month mark, and I thought I'd bring life to this channel with a little update of how I am halfway through the year, and then I'll send out some continuous updates, a few more videos, hopefully weekly over the next 6 months or so until we hit, to see if we hit the goal of 100. But let me know what you guys think of the list. Let me know of any game suggestions. If they're part of the backlog, I'll prioritize them. But yeah, let's go into it. Okay, so the first one I did was possibly my favorite Hitman game of all time because it introduced me to the franchise. It's the HD remake of Hitman Absolution. I started this on the, I believe, 14th of January, if I just have it now. 16th of January is when I started it, and as you can see, because of how much I've played it, I finished it on the 17th. So this was a pretty easy game, if I'm honest, and if I remember correctly, the guide for this puts it at 30 hours, but I've played this so many times since it first released on the PS3 back in, I think, 2012, so the platinum on this version actually only took me 7 hours. Next up we have something that pretty much every PS5 owner should have. It's Astro's Playroom, platinum and full 100%. I don't know what I can say about Astro. It's a very simple little love letter to PlayStation history, and we will see more of him later on. This had a guide time of about 9 hours, but it shouldn't take anywhere near that long. It took me, actually, according to my PS5, 2 hours. Then we move on to the third game I did, which was the 2018 reboot of God of War, moving into Norse mythology. This was an amazing story, but a bit of an annoying cleanup. I think it was... bear with... the Odin's Raven and the artifacts, because when you're done with the story, there isn't really much left to do, and it's a bit of an empty-ish world, so it was a bit boring grabbing them all at the end. The Valkyries themselves, expectedly hard, but not as hard as everyone's been saying they are. Again, this one should have taken 40 hours according to the guides, and took me 36 according to my PS5. Then we have the semi-reboot / sequel of in Infamous Second Son. Very fun, very sort of turn your brain off open world action. You get superpowers, you're enjoying it, destroying what you can. Story's interesting the first time you play through it, but you do have to play through it a second time. And expert difficulty actually was a little bit of a challenge. This was expected to take 20 hours, actually took me a little bit longer at 21. The next one I did was Destroy All Humans. I never played the originals, but I did hear good things about them. And I had this on my backlog as a physical copy, so I decided to give it a go. It's entertaining for what it is, but I'm glad it's not longer than a 15-hour expected platinum, and it actually took me 13. So while it is fun, if it was any longer, it would start to sort of bleed into each other and just not be as entertaining, because the worlds themselves and the mission design is a bit limited. Then we have the 2022 heavyweight, Elden Ring. I beat this and planned this on launch, so I was redoing it here for this account when I started in January. So while it is expected to take 80 hours, it took me about 29 according to my PS5. Ignore that little spoiler in the corner. I am planning on getting that game done before the server shut down next January, because I would love to have another unobtainable on my list. A completed unobtainable, rather. So yeah, this took 29 hours, notable bosses, obviously Malenia, but I actually had more problem with Shardbearer Mohg. He's somehow more annoying than Malenia was. With Malenia, it was just the bonk stick. Great sword, Lion's Claw, I call it cheese, call it whatever, but it was entertaining as hell. Next up we have the first two Arkham games on the PS3. Arkham Asylum, very short but really good story. Easy to track collectibles thanks to those Riddler maps that you could find around the place. Should take 20 hours, took me 9. It's really not a long game, and the combat challenges are nowhere near as hard as people say they are. Like Shokanor Extreme, I think, is the one that's called, with the electrified floors. realistically, I think that took 3 or 4 tries. It's not bad once you get into the free flow combat, and then using the combat throw to get people off the ledges faster. Then into the heavy hitter, Arkham City's full 100%. This is mostly pretty easy to do. The main issue obviously being Catwoman's campaign medals, and by default the ranked medals as well. Those ones took a good few days to just working on Catwoman's rank challenges and campaign challenges to get completed, and in total took me 50 hours for the full 100%, which I'm very proud of. It should take 86 according to the guide, summing up all the DLCs. Then back to my favorite franchise of all time, we have the 2016 reboot of Hitman, and as you can see, it's the full 100% here, done one after the other. They really sort of perfected the formula for Hitman on the 2016 reboot, and it just kept getting better up until Hitman 3, and I've recently been playing the freelancer mode. I do plan on doing more of that in my free time. Other than that, I think most of these were pretty easy, except obviously Colorado, because the entire zone is a hostile area, so unless you can grab a disguise immediately, you will be spotted pretty quickly. I then went on to the PS3 Sega Mega Drive Ultimate Collection. This was a little collection of about 20 or so arcade games from the Sega Mega Drive and Sega Genesis. Honestly, not a long platinum. Oh, just to go back to Hitman, by the way, it took 21 hours to finish it all off. But on this, not a difficult platinum, because the majority of the games don't actually require you to beat them. It's more so just do a very small task very early on in the game. For example, Enter the Beast was just to collect 100,000 points in the first level, and then that's it. You never had to touch it again. Or Hardly a Hero, completing the first episode of Comics Zone. The only difficult one, and I say difficult because it's very RNG heavy, is Yatta, Dr. Robotnik's MBM, completing the actual game. So you had to beat the final boss. You could use a code to get straight to the final boss, so you didn't have to play the entire game, but then you did have to beat the final boss. And a lot of people say it's skill dependent. I don't think it is. It's just doing the same thing over and over again, waiting for Dr. Robotnik to mess up. So this entire game took about 6 hours to platinum, and the last 2 were spent on Dr. Robotnik and this trophy alone. Then we have the first Souls game I ever played, Demon's Souls on the PS3. Going back to it this year, it is so much easier than I remember. The only thing to keep track of obviously was what rings you obtained and what weapons you had, and making sure you didn't drop any of the crafting material you needed to dupe in order to fully upgrade the weapons for this chunk of trophies over here. Especially, I think it was Bladestone. Took me about 45 minutes to get pure Bladestone, but the overall platinum only took about 14, because in this game magic was just completely broken. You could kill everything in 2 to 3 hits, maybe 4 if it was a tougher boss. Then we have the anime game Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, the Hinokami Chronicles. This was a 3D sort of arena fighter, the story of which followed season 1, I believe, up until the Mugen Train saga. It followed until the end of that, where you sort of played through every arc itself and fought notable battles throughout each one. Not a difficult game, but it was genuinely enjoyable. I think the hardest parts were S-ranking a few of these chapters, because a few of the special missions were harder to get an S-rank on. They had very tight sort of time limits and damage limits and how many hits you could take. And then the hardest one was an S-rank in the T-Splasher minigame on normal difficulty. This was just pure reflexes. This had nothing to do with sort of difficult fights or any sort of arenas. It was just how fast and how accurately can you press the buttons flying in at you. This one took me about 12 hours to complete, and the guide time estimates it at 15. High on Life is next. This was hilarious. This was unbelievably entertaining. Not a difficult game at all, as you sort of go through killing each of the bounty bosses, obtaining all the different guns, and there's a few sort of missables throughout. For example, using Squeezy to boss around the office moplets. There was, what was the other one? Sacrificing any Gatlian other than Kenny. Watching Global's rise to fame, this one was stressful because you had to sort of keep checking in throughout the game to ensure that he was progressing in his career. There was one that was, where is it? Was it in the DLC? No, it was this one here. Sit through the entirety of the really annoying countdown show on TV. So I did the DLC for this game and then came back leaving this one for last, and it took about an hour and a half of constant resets of the same checkpoint to finally get this showing up on the TV in your house, and then you then had to sit through a 10-minute countdown show. But overall, the game was very fun. It was very funny. I do hope the sequel does come to PS5 eventually. I know when this one came out, it was on Xbox exclusively for a while, and then it came to PS5, so I'm hoping the same happens again. This took 21 hours to complete, and the estimated time is actually quite a bit less at 16. Moving on, we then follow on from Hitman 2016 with Hitman 2 and the entirety of this DLC. So this was a little bit stressful because I was worried about being able to complete the sniper assassin missions, I believe, in multiplayer. Yeah, so there's one for each of the 3 maps: Himmelstein, Singapore, and it's in the DLC, Siberia. So these all had one online trophy each, so it was a bit hard trying to find someone to get them completed. But overall, pretty much the exact same formula as Hitman 2016. Nearly every major map follows the same path. It's completing it, doing specific types of kills, a miscellaneous, the mission stories, completing it on master, a starting location on a smuggle, and then reaching max mastery level 20 on every single one of the maps. So it was sort of the same gameplay loop across all of the different ones. I think my favorite map has to be, it's actually in the DLC, it's New York. I love the fact that it's all enclosed in one building, but there's still so much freedom. What I didn't like was having to redo the entirety of Hitman 1, because Hitman 1 to Hitman 2 doesn't carry over, it's just 2 to 3. So I did have to redo all of it, and that's what made the expected guide time 97 hours. But surprisingly, it took me 51. Now we have one of the quote-unquote OG shovelwares, which by today's standards is actually a great game, Terminator Salvation. And I'll be honest, I really enjoyed this. It's criminally short. It took me 3 hours to platinum this, because all you have to do is beat the game on hard difficulty. There's no collectibles, there's no side quests. You just have to get through the 9 chapters on hard difficulty, and that's it. You get your platinum, and for some reason every single one of the trophies is gold, and then you get a platinum after that. So it really wasn't difficult. There was a couple checkpoints where it seemed a bit unfair, but it really wasn't much to get through at all. Like I said, it took 3 hours. I did it in a day. Another, I would say, underrated game, purely because it wasn't well received on launch, because it was £45 for a 10-hour game. But looking back on it now, if you can get it on sale, I highly recommend The Order 1886. I love the setting of it. I love the story of going against the Lycans and vampires. Really wasn't long at all. I think it took me 6 hours to platinum, and it's expected to take, according to PSN profiles. I should mention all of these expected times are PSN profiles, and me being the highly detailed and sort of anal person I am, I've also tracked how long they actually took me. So this took me 6 hours of the expected 10, and maybe 80% of these trophies are miscellaneous, 15% are collectible, and you get 1 trophy for beating the game on any difficulty. So just start it up on a difficulty you're comfortable with, go through collecting as many items as you can see. There is chapter select from what I remember, and then just focus on a bunch of the miscellaneous trophies. So there's one where you have to keep track on throughout the entire game. Where is it? It's to kill 1 enemy with every single weapon. Yeah, kill an enemy with every weapon for well-rounded. Honestly, not too bad if you have a guide, because you can figure out where these weapons will become available, where they're dropped, etc. But it really was enjoyable, and I do recommend it if you get it on sale. Then we have the game that pretty much carried everyone through the initial COVID lockdown. Modern Warfare 2019, the easiest Call of Duty I think I've ever played by far, especially the veteran campaign playthrough. It's not difficult at all. It's not long. You just have to get through the game on veteran while obtaining 1 or 2 miscellaneous trophies per mission, and most of them can be done during the veteran playthrough anyway, so you only have to go back to a few missions in the end. I think my favorite one was Clean House, I believe it's called, Golden Path here, where it's set in London and you do a sort of sting operation on a nighttime Camden house, and you have to get through the entire place without being shot and using only 1 bullet per threat, which was a lot of fun. I also did the the Spec Ops trophy, where you had to complete the 4 original Spec Ops maps. This was a goddamn nightmare. It was unbelievably difficult to get done. The amount of enemies and juggernauts and choppers, they just chuck at you non-stop. And in some of them, the checkpoints are so few and far between, it's ridiculous. Overall, the 100% took me 15 hours of an expected 14, but I can tell you now that about 6 hours was spent in Spec Ops. So getting the platinum itself should have only been about 9. Then we get on to Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. It came out last year. Me and a friend of mine got this, so we played quite a lot of online matches just against each other that really helped towards this 100 matches here. Fought in 100 online battles. This one is the one that it helped with. But this was super interesting, going through all the arcs, having watched the show myself, and then also seeing the sparking episodes for what could have been. I think my favorite one was the Proof of Justice and the True Strength sagas for Goku, Black Rose, and Jiren. There was their bonus battles here. This one was a lot of fun. It was super interesting to see all the different kinds of matchups that you could get. The most annoying trophy I think was Purunga. It was I think the last trophy I got, and it just took so long of constantly restarting versus matches against the second controller to try and get them to drop so I could summon the damn guy. Overall though, still highly recommend the game. It's not gotten a huge support from the developers. There's also no DLC trophies, but there are some interesting DLC fighters that I do plan on checking out. This is guided at 30 hours, and it took me 20 hours on the dot to get the platinum. Then we have my favorite Soulsborne game, and I have played this an absolute metric ton since it first came out in 2019. So I am very familiar with this game, and it really did not take me long to platinum. This is estimated at 60 hours, and I think a 7 out of 10. But it took me 18 hours, and that's 18 hours that it took me to beat the game 4 times. I am very, very familiar and very comfortable with this game. At this point, with how many times I've beaten it, I can't even tell you which trophy was the most challenging. The most annoying one is obviously Heights of Technique for getting all the skills, because even after 4 full playthroughs to get all the 4 different endings, you still have to farm for a few hours. In terms of the biggest challenge, I would say it was Inner Owl, even though that's not tied to a trophy. I really wanted the Shura outfit for my final playthrough, so I did challenge it and I did beat him, but man, it was harder than pretty much anything else in the game. Well, the PS5 really wants to let you know that Anthem's going to be coming up soon. The next game I did was Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch on the PS3. I love this game, and the cutscenes are amazing. They're made by Studio Ghibli, and I'm a huge fan of their movies. But beating this was honestly not difficult. The main challenge was beating the Guardian of Worlds, which you got at the very end of the game once you beat the story, and I think pretty much all the side quests. Then the biggest challenge and the biggest actual grind was not even taming 250 different species, because you could just capture a bunch of lower level ones and just evolve them. So if you capture 2 base game familiars and then evolve them to max, you got an extra 3, so every 2 captures became 5 total familiars, so it really wasn't that bad. The difficult one was Mad Scientist. This was a huge grind because there were some alchemical ingredients that only dropped from golden familiars, and you had to sort of forced the game into dropping a Golden Glim, then picking up Swain to use his super special move to guarantee the rarest item, and it just took hours. I know this is expected to take 80, but it took me 50, and I can sum that up purely because Dinosaros is a broken familiar. That Air Splitter and Boulder move, it's disgusting. Then I was actually on holiday, so I decided to take the PS Vita with me and knock out a few games there. The first one, again, Hitman. Like I said, my favorite franchise. I will be getting every single one of them. I did Hitman Go, the definitive edition on PS Vita. This was very, very challenging, actually. It was expected to take 4 hours, and it did take me 4 hours, because some of the objectives where you had to either complete it in a certain move or get the briefcase and leave. Luckily, you don't have to do both in one go, because frankly some of them are impossible, but with some trial and error they were all very doable. And then of course a few miscellaneous turns, killing 5 enemies at once, wasting time by playing 100 turns in a single level. Those were all pretty much guaranteed as you play through, but the final one that really mattered was getting all objectives of every chapter without using any hints. So that was another thing the game offered, where you could press, I think it was triangle or something, and it gave you a hint on which directions to move, what path to take, etc. to get a medal. But doing it without that really was a much funner challenge. Then we have the Astro's Playroom of the PS Vita, Welcome Park. This was honestly just a bunch of tiny little mini games that took 5 to 10 minutes each. I think getting all the trophies took me an hour. Really wasn't hard, but it was nice to see some of the different ways the PS Vita's accessories, I would say, or parts were being used. For example, like the camera, the snap and slide puzzle was a pain in the neck. I think it was, completing a 15 by 15, a 5 by 5 puzzle in under 50 seconds was so difficult for no reason. But there's not much to say about this. This was more of a tech demo for what you can do with the touchscreen and the camera and the PS Vita. It took an hour, wasn't really too memorable. Then we went on to the first game in the Jak and Daxter trilogy. I have the entire trilogy on PS Vita, and I plan to get the second and third games when I go on holiday next month, because I'll be taking that with me. First time ever experiencing Jak and Daxter, and I can honestly say I really did enjoy it. Some parts were a little bit difficult because of the jank with the PS Vita controller, and I think it was, which one was it? There was a couple of missables. Catch 200 pounds of fish using the touchscreen, which wasn't difficult, but it was the other touchscreen related trophy. Protect farthest snacks using the touchscreen. This was a nightmare, because you had to pretty much constantly swipe and tap, and sometimes it would lag out and not respond, so you would lose and have to retry. This one took me about just an hour straight, sat there firing at those rats, I think they were, or moles or something like that. But other than that, there was nothing else in this game that was, really challenging. Collecting all the power cells wasn't hard. The scout flies wasn't hard because you could see what you had sort of per area. So it was very easy to keep track of what was done, what wasn't done. Overall, it's supposed to have taken 10 hours, but it actually took me 15 because I kept getting lost in some of the areas, and that snack defense one. Then we have another one of my favorite game developers, Grasshopper Studios, and one of their games, Killer is Dead. As weird as it sounds, the premises for this is you are an assassin for hire who also works part-time as a gigolo. It is as strange as it sounds, it's as fun as it sounds. The combat is amazing, the story is just ridiculous, but so much fun at the same time. Even playing it on, I believe it was very hard, really wasn't a challenge, because you could unlock a suit called Ultimondo and the Blood Arm, where you did like double damage, you had unlimited blood, and you could just fly through the missions. It wasn't bad at all. Getting AAA rank on all 44 missions, however, that one was difficult. So there are a couple of Scarlet challenges, I think it was. Some of the combat challenges where you couldn't get hit the entire time were hard. And then there was one submission. It was you were defending someone using a turret, and you had to sort of line up headshots the entire time while also making sure they didn't get to you, and also making sure you didn't overheat the turret. That one was tough. That one did take a few tries, and overall the game took 21 hours to platinum. which is still, I'm very proud to say, way ahead of the guide time at 40. Control was my second favorite game of 2019, actually, just behind Sekiro. I love this game to bits. It sort of introduced me to the whole SCP Foundation universe. I was confused when I first played it. I was freaked out when I saw some of the areas, but I had so much fun with it. Some of the missions, I know it was the Ashtray Maze, was an absolute highlight of the game. It was amazing. I think it was... where can I see where the missions are? Yeah, it was Mission A. It was actually pretty late into the game, just before, towards the end. That one was amazing. You had to get the headphones from the janitors to allow yourself to get through the maze, and there was this amazing soundtrack playing while you were flying through, fighting off the hiss. It was epic. There was a part in the final mission, or epilogue I should say, where you're in a sort of simulation as an intern. I was stuck there for a full hour. I could not figure out how to get out. I just kept printing out sheets and collecting coffee mugs and giving mail to the desks, wondering why nothing was changing. It was driving me nuts. In terms of collectibles as well, they were very genuine. They were very generous. You didn't actually have to collect the full 100% of all collectibles. You just had to get 120. And what made that even easier was that counted the collectibles you got in the Foundation and AWE DLCs. So in this one, you actually had to get all collectibles, and that added to the 120 in the base game. So you barely had to worry about collectibles in the base game, because you were expected to collect a certain amount of them in the DLCs. The DLCs were mainly a little bit forgettable, but it was... Oh, fighting Hartman was the highlight of the two DLCs. They were a lot of fun. Sorry, I disappeared. I have no idea what I actually said. I think I said Hartman was a very creepy boss fight, but a very satisfying one to finally beat when you get all the lights on. And this whole 100% took me 16 hours of an expected 30, which I'm very happy with. Then we went to Assassin's Creed 2 on the PS3. This is just a classic Platinum trophy. I think everyone should have, at the very minimum, if they're going to have an Assassin's Creed, I would suggest Assassin's Creed 2. It is really easy, it's not a long game. Even with people complaining about the feathers, even without a guide, the map itself lets you check per region. Within, for example, Venice, you can check each individual region and see what feathers you have in that region. So it's a much smaller area to comb through each time. So it really wasn't that bad. And the 20 pieces of Subject 16's video, in the database you can get pictures of the buildings, so you know which city they're in, what the building looks like, and then you just go into Eagle Vision and find it. So it really wasn't bad. You just had to keep an eye out for the one missable trophy in Sequence 7, I think it is, where while you were flying Leonardo's machine you had to kick a guard. But aside from that, there was literally nothing else to worry about the game. The tombs were all fun. The side quests, they say it's a lot of side quests. It's 4 side quests repeated 82 times. It's not that varied. So once you've done them once, there's really no need to do any more, because you get more than enough money to get all the upgrades by the end of the game anyway. Then I decided to play the Crash Trilogy for the first time, and this was an absolute nightmare. So the first one, oh, I should say, by the way, Assassin's Creed 2, 13 hours out of an expected 30. Don't expect that to be the case with Crash Bandicoot. So this was so challenging. Beating the game itself was fine. Getting all the gems, majoritively okay. Some of them required you to not die, etc. They were okay. It was the 26 relics. Now, I remember skipping, I think it was Sunset Vista, just because that's a 4-minute speedrun and I don't want to do it, because I had to speedrun the DLC trophy, or the DLC map, Stormy Ascent. Anyway, so I thought, why not trade in one 4-minute speedrun for another one? And this alone took, I think, 5 or 6 hours. It took a couple hours just to beat it, and then another 4 hours just to get the speedrun gold time, which was ridiculous. I know the guide for this game only puts it at 21 hours, but it took me 37, which is ridiculous. It was so hard. It had me raging for like a week straight, but in the end we did get it done. We then immediately moved on to the sequel because I do hate myself. This one, while easier to get the platinum on, because this is where they introduced the sort of speed boosts, the levels themselves, now being designed for speed runs, required you to use those speed boosts to get through and get the golden times on. The majority of the other levels, the gems, all fine, not really an issue. Again, the main issue was getting 27 relics, gold or better. And luckily there was no DLC for this. It's expected to take 14, and I doubled that at 28. So again, way over the estimate for Crash 2, same as Crash 1. And then we move on to Crash 3, which is the easiest of the three, as everyone does say, but still not super easy itself. The same sort of applied here, where you had to get every single gem in every level, but also 30 relics at gold rank or better. But what made this easier was there was a lot more gimmicky levels. For example, the racing ones with Crash, or the ski ones with Coco. Those levels were a lot easier to get gold in than sort of the traditional platform levels. So it did make it easier overall, and they did have more useful items like the Wumpa Bazooka. That one really helped clearing out a few boxes and a few enemies before hitting the stopwatch to start the time trial. This also had a DLC in Future Tense, and luckily you didn't have to speedrun this. I think I did speedrun this because I didn't want to speedrun Hot Cocoa, because that one was just annoying. But this one was nowhere near as hard as Stormy Ascent. It was expected to take 16 hours, and it took me just over 18. Then we close out the World of Assassination trilogy with Hitman 3. I love this game to bits. I still play Freelancer from time to time, and as you can see, even though I'm on the PS5, I've done the PS4 version of this. It's because I plan on doing the entire World of Assassination trilogy on the purely on the PSVR 2, getting every trophy I can. Now I understand that some trophies like the Sniper Assassin and perhaps the Contracts mode will need regular play. That's fine, but in terms of every single individual level and getting Mastery rank 20 in Silent Assassin suit only, I plan on doing that in the PSVR 2, so I feel like that'll be a really interesting and a really entertaining video to watch when I do get around to it. So I'm very excited to give that a go. But yeah, that's why I've done this on the PS4. PS5 version will happen, and I have a PSVR 2. I'm very excited to give that a go. This was expected to take 48 hours, and it took me 22, because at this point I've played so much Hitman. And the best mission itself was, let's see, it wasn't Dubai, it's always a tie between Berlin and Chongqing. Now I love Berlin because I love the first playthrough of Berlin where you don't know who the targets are, but in terms of replayability, Chongqing was my favorite by far. Wolfenstein: The Own Blood is next. I didn't have as much trouble as I expected to have on this. It was definitely challenging, mainly in the challenge maps. So on top of beating the story and collecting all the collectibles, you had to then beat it on Uber, complete all the sort of little side levels, which are callbacks to the original Wolfenstein games, where you're in a maze and you have to sort of get to the end. But the main challenge of this game comes in these challenge maps set in different locations from the story. So there you have to play on I Am Death Incarnate, I believe. So it's one below Uber in order to be able to unlock a gold medal. And you just have to get a high enough score in a limited amount of enemies to make sure that A, you survive, and B, by the time you've beaten it, your score is sufficient for a gold rank. Most of these were a few tries. There were a couple, and I specifically remember, Paderborn Bridge. This one was the hardest one of all of them. You had to deal with two of the mechanized super soldiers, the giant robot dog jumped in at one point, loads of snipers, a few shotgun guys that were walking up towards you, they're heavily armored. This and the caves were both the most challenging ones by far. Then we have the spiritual sibling of Hitman Go in Lara Croft Go. Way easier because you could actually use a guide when you were stuck without losing a trophy, but more annoying in the sense that you had to collect all collectibles throughout the game. There were pretty much little vases in the background of every level that you had to move the right stick to hover over them to break them to get either relics or gems to unlock other costumes. So you just had to sort of keep a constant eye out throughout every single level. It was this one here, yeah, Preservation Society. Didn't take long at all though. It was because you could use a guide to get through the level and then just focus purely on collectibles. It took me 2 hours. Oh, and then Wolfenstein The Old Blood took me, 11 hours out of expected 12. Then we went to, I think, my first fighting game on this list. It was BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle. This was a lot of fun, but playing online was tough. I had to really fight for those wins in the ranked lobbies and the normal lobbies, because the people there that still play this game all had thousands of wins, were ranked so much higher than me. Where can I find the online part? So it was, yeah, winning in a room match, winning in a ranked lobby, and winning in an online lobby match. So it was just chaos, because you jump in and then I got perfected, like didn't even land a hit on the person I was facing several times. It was so demoralizing at first, but other than that, the majority of the game is super easy. You just have to sort of beat episode mode in certain ways, beat the 4 different endings, do some specific actions that you can do with a second controller. In like versus mode, it really wasn't that tough. It was supposed to take 7 hours. It took me 9. Then we moved on to Abzu. This was super relaxing after the last game. It doesn't have a platinum, but still, like I said, whether it has a platinum or not, I'm trying to 100% 100 games this year. So it doesn't really matter if it has a platinum or not. It doesn't matter how much DLC it has or not. The only thing I care about is whether it's obtainable, which is why I'm trying to get Anthem done ASAP. This one took a couple hours, was super chill. None of the collectibles were that hard to find. I think I had to replay 2 locations at the very end to find the hidden pools and the secret shells. The meditation statues I didn't need one for, because they were all sort of easy to find. They're like massive stone statues that you sit on. But yeah, the music in this game was amazing. I really want to go back and play its Journey, and I think it's called Flower as well, the other one that they made. I do want to get those 2 done there. I'm really looking forward to getting back into them. That one took a couple hours to wrap up. Then we have possibly the weirdest game on my list so far. Did I enjoy it? Absolutely. Would I recommend it? I really don't know. It's a sort of Takeshi's Castle marathon-like runner, where you can play with friends local, but you pick a character and beat their story, where it's basically just doing 8 races back to back, with a few text-based cutscenes in between each race, depending on what character you play as. So you complete the story mode with each one. There's a few miscellaneous ones, like be declared the smelliest, get away from me. Not 100% sure what it means. I remember unlocking it, but I don't remember what happened in that race that let me unlock it. There are some collectibles in each mission, in each race. They're called Wedi pages. They're sort of pages for a travel guide in Japan. Majoritively were easy to find. I did need a guide for, I think, 3 of the races where I was missing a page or 2. And then there's a couple mini games. Lobster mode is more akin to Takeshi's Castle or Total Wipeout if you're from the UK. And then Turkey Trolley it seemed very RNG based. It was ragdoll bowling when you dove into a shopping trolley and tried to get 3 strikes in a row. It really wasn't that skill intensive. You just had to sort of fire off and hope for the best. This was supposed to take 15 hours and it took me 8, so it's really not difficult. And then FBC Firebreak came out, and like I said, Control is one of my favorite games of 2019. I could not wait to jump back into the old house. This was a lot of fun, especially with how chaotic it got on I think it's called Clearance Level 6, where you play on Extreme but with all 3 corruption levels on it. So this was a lot of fun. The hardest one, of course, was OSHA Compliant, where you had to play on hard with Clearance Level 3. This, basically nobody was able to go down during this, so I found a few people that were already on the game, added them, and then it took us, I think, 4 attempts to beat one of the missions without anyone going down. It was a lot of fun, but I really do hope they keep supporting this game and release some new missions, because it came out with just 5 and 3 classes. And I'm hoping for at least one more class, a few more missions, some more what are they called? Corrupted items, having different debuffs. Overall, it's a lot of fun, but I can't see it lasting too long unless they give it more updates. It's expected to take 25 hours, but even going in fully blind like I did and just relying on matchmaking to get trophies, it took me only 13 hours to get the 100%. It's really not bad. Then we went on to Donut County. This is a sort of indie game where, I don't know if you've seen perhaps on social media, those whole IO games where the more items you eat, the bigger the hole gets. It's pretty much based on that. It's a super short, super like little quirky game. It's supposed to take 3 hours to platinum. It took me 2, and purely because there are 1 or 2 miscellaneous trophies at the end. Like beating the boss fight without taking damage. I didn't realize I did that. Or losing the boss fight, I had to go back and do that. Or make this one, I think was the final one I got, make chef's secret soup recipe. It's just the small things you do out of the way of regular missions, but literally it's a 1 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10 at best in terms of difficulty, and it took me 2 hours instead of the 3 suggested. Then we have a visual novel called Vampire the Masquerade Shadows of New York. Super easy to say name, but as you can probably see by the timestamps, I did this in under 20 minutes because I flew through it. I beat this game 3 years ago, I think it was, when I first bought it. And after getting through the first 2 chapters, I really just did not want to sit through what I already knew what was going to happen. I had already been all the endings in the past. I already was familiar with all the characters. So I flew through it at the end just to get back to my 100% in this game, which I have already earned in the past. So that took, 20 minutes maybe? South Park The Stick of Truth. This is a missable nightmare. It is not a long game. Expected to take 20 hours. Still, even then, with all the missables, took me 10. But it really kind of sucks the fun out of it, where you have to constantly consult a guide to make sure you haven't missed a certain side quest, or you haven't accidentally used an item you weren't supposed to, or you're not using a specific item when you fight a boss, like here, where you have to beat the boss hole monitor while wearing freckles. Or at the very end of the game, where before you beat Kenny, you have to do certain different things where make yourself look like David Hasselhoff, where the girl makeover disguise get AIDS from Canada for some reason. It's just a lot of conditional trophies that really made it sort of stressful, along with missable collectibles like the Chimp Pokemon and the Friends list. Those ones, just keeping a constant eye on those. I think there was a somebody put on PSNP a Excel tracker for missable items, which was clutch. I don't remember who it was, but whoever you are, thank you so much. It made it so much easier to keep track of everything without constantly being glued to a guide. After that was another PS3 game, Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands. This is expected to take 10 hours, took me 8. There are collectibles in here. They're called the sarcophagi, or break every sarcophagus. These are not hard to find because there's sort of glowing blue particles in the vicinity of where they are, so you know you're near one at some point. So you just sort of look for any bricks on the wall that you can climb up that isn't in the way, and there you go, you found it. Once you've done that, you then sort of go through the challenge mode of the game, which a lot of games at the time had, like God of War 3, the original God of Wars, Prince of Persia, things like that. They all had this sort of extra added challenge mode where you had to beat 6 waves, which is actually really useful because by the time you completed the game, you never actually got enough orbs for every single upgrade. So you just playing this a few times got me there in I think an extra 45 minutes after beating everything in the main game. It took me 8 hours to platinum, and PSNP puts it at 10. Astrobot is not my latest platinum because I actually did this in May, so this was actually my 24th game. It was way back after Jak and Daxter, but recently the second Vicious Void levels came out a few days ago. I was skeptical about why this won Game of the Year until I played it, and then I started understanding why this won Game of the Year. It is just pure fun. There's nothing about it that's strenuous or you have to worry about further down the line. All the bots are amazing. Astrobot is charming. There's so many callbacks to amazing franchises. The final levels in each world, whether are themed by like God of War or Uncharted or Ape Escape, even Loco Roco, were all so much fun. The miscellaneous trophies were really entertaining as well. Even the speed runs in some of these, I think it was Stella Speedway, were just not difficult at all, if I'm honest. Was it the first Vicious Void as well? Yeah, the bot in these ones, these were really just not that tough. I hope they release like an actual full expansion. I don't mind paying for it instead of just a handful of levels every 6 months or so. I would 100% grab a full expansion for this game. But yeah, the entire 100% took me 22 hours, which is a little over the expected time of 18. I believe it's still 18, if I can check if the newest guide came out for the second one. No, so it's still, yeah, 18, maybe 20 hours in total, but it took me 22 to wrap everything up. But yeah, currently we're working on Hitman Contracts on the PS3, again, favorite franchise. I do plan on doing the entire HD trilogy, but I might take a pause off the Contracts to go focus on Anthem before it shuts down. But yeah, like I said, this has been my journey so far, 6 months into my 100 games in 12 months challenge. I'm a little bit behind. I'm sitting at 41 completed games, 36 platinums, but I do hope to pick it up over the next 6 months and really make sure I get that 100 games by the end of the year. I do plan on, instead of a game a video, I'm planning on every sort of 2 to 3 games. If I can get them done in a week, I'll get out a video summarizing what I've done, how they were and my experience with them, and open up suggestions for the next week's 2 to 3 games, depending on how long they are. Obviously, if it's an 80 to 100 hour RPG, it might be the only game in that video, but if it's a few 20 to 30 hour games, I can fit all 3 of them in a week. But let me know what you guys think. Drop your PSNs down in the comments if you guys want to add me, if you guys want to have any games that you want to boost. If they're in my backlog, I'll absolutely put them up next. Let me know if any games you want me to give a go, any games you want to see, any sort of challenges you want to see. But yeah, I'm very excited for this. I hope more and more of you can stick around and follow along with this journey. Again, before I leave, welcome to the channel. I'm very excited to speak to all of you again, and I can't wait to hear from you guys in the comments. See you next time.